Welcome to Mikamchi Israel. Parashat Teitzei introduces us to one of the most difficult and perplexing laws in the entire Torah, the Ben Sorer U'Morer, the wayward and rebellious son. The Torah describes a young boy whose behavior has deteriorated to such an extraordinary degree that his parents bring him before the elders of the city and they declare, Beinenu zeh sorer u'morer einenu shomeh bekolenu. This is the son, it's our son. He's wayward and rebellious, and he simply doesn't listen to our voice. The consequences described by the Torah are almost impossible to comprehend. And indeed, the Gemara in Sanhedrin teaches that the conditions required for a child to actually become a Ben Sorer U'Morer are so precise and so difficult to satisfy that according to one opinion, lo haya v'lo atid lihiyot, it never happened and it could never happen. So why does the Torah teach us this law? There are many profound answers, but Reb Shimshon Raphael Hirsch points to one remarkable detail. The parents have to say, Einenu shomeh bekolenu. He doesn't listen to our voice. Not our voices, our singular voice. Reb Hirsch explains that before we can make the ultimate judgment about this particular child, his parents must have themselves been united in the way that they raised him. Their values have to be consistent. Their home had to speak with a singular voice. Because if the child received conflicting messages, if there were perhaps external influences that contributed to what he became, then no matter how terrible his behavior may presently appear, the Torah does not allow us to conclude that the problem lies within the essence of the child himself. And hidden inside this difficult mitzvah is an extraordinary lesson about the way we look at another human being. There is a difference between a person's behavior and a person's essence. A person can do something wrong without being wrong. A person can lose his way without being lost, and perhaps, most importantly, what you see in someone today may tell you very little about that person, who he can become tomorrow. And there is a remarkable story that brings this idea to life. Many years ago, a young Melamed was teaching in a school here in New Jersey when the mother of one of his students approached him with a broken heart. Her older son, Moshe, was a teenager who had left yeshiva. He was breaking boundaries and frankly answerable to no one. His parents tried everything they knew. Every door they tried closed. The mother pleaded with this young Melamed, please, I beg you, speak to my son. Maybe perhaps you can reach him. And he agreed. But there was a difficulty. He had never worked with troubled teenagers before, and he had no special training. And with no strategy, he wondered to himself, what could I possibly say to this boy? And he remembered a story from the Gemara. Reb Elazar, the son of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, had a son named Yossi, who had strayed terribly. Rebbe took this young man and placed him under the guidance of Rebbe Shimon ben Isi ben Lakonya. Yossi had no interest in learning. Every day he just wanted to kish. But Reb Shimshon kept telling him, Yossi, if you learn, you will become a chacham and people will call you Rebbe again and again. He spoke to him not about the person Yossi appeared to be, but about the person he could ultimately become. And eventually, Yossi, he changed. He devoted himself to Torah and ultimately became a great big Talmid Chacham and Sadiq. The young Melamed decided, you know what? That's going to be my approach with Moshe. And he met with the boy. Instead of lecturing him and reminding him of everything he was doing wrong, he looked at a struggling teenager and told him, Moshe, one day you're going to be a Rosh Yeshiva. You are going to learn and you will grow. And then one day, yes, people are going to want to come and learn Torah in your yeshiva. This Melamed went home and actually designed special letterhead. Across the top, he proudly printed Harav Hagoon Moshe Kom Shlita Rosh Yeshiva Amorot HaGeula. Imagine that boy holding the paper. Everyone else was looking at what Moshe had become. This man was showing Moshe what he could become. And slowly, you guessed it, the boy began to turn. Moshe began moving forward. He began coming closer again. And eventually, as this happens in life, the two of them lost contact over time and years passed. The Melamed often wondered what had become of that boy. Had he remained connected? Had he ultimately ended up building a Jewish home? He simply didn't know, but life went on. 32 years later, this same man was looking for work. He had spent years in the tourism industry, but the work had dried up, and he decided, you know what? Perhaps it's time to return to the world of chinuch. He had heard that a local yeshiva for Ba'alei Teshuvah was looking for someone with his type of experience. So he arranged an interview with this particular Rosh Yeshiva. He walked into the office. A dignified man sat behind the desk and they began speaking with one another. The Rosh Yeshiva asked about his background as an experience with younger people. And suddenly, the memories came flooding back. He stared at the man across from him. The Rosh Yeshiva stared back. And of course, they recognized one another. It was Moshe, the teenager who had left yeshiva. The boy everyone was terrified would be lost. The young man who had once been handed a piece of imaginary letterhead, bearing the words Rosh Yeshiva. 32 years later, he was sitting behind the desk of a real yeshiva as its Rosh Yeshiva. And Moshe looked at his former Rebbe and said something unforgettable. You were the only one who saw a future for me. 32 years earlier, many people could see a troubled teenager. One man saw Rosh Yeshiva, and perhaps that is one of the profound messages hidden inside the Ben Sorer Morer. The Torah is warning us, don't confuse what a person is doing with who that person is. We all know someone who's struggling. Sometimes it's a child, a spouse, a friend, and sometimes it's the person looking back at us in the mirror. We look at our failures and our mistakes, the promises we made and we didn't keep, and slowly, without realizing it, we stop saying, I did something wrong, and begin believing there's something wrong with me. But those are not the same thing. Our failures may describe moments in our lives. They do not define the essence of our neshama. And perhaps that is why this message comes to us now. As we move closer toward Elul and the Yamim Noraim, Teshuvah is possible precisely because yesterday does not define tomorrow. Borei Olam knows what we've done, but he also knows something that we sometimes forget. He knows clearly who we can still become. So perhaps this week, look at someone differently. Look beyond their behavior, beyond their mistakes, beyond the moment. And if someone you love has forgotten who they can become, maybe you can remember for them. Because sometimes all it takes to change a person's life is one person who can look at a struggling teenager and already see the Rosh Yeshiva sitting behind the desk. Shabbat Shalom and Mivorach.